So probably the biggest thing about land is it's just underappreciated. It's very inefficient. I remember reading about that concept, 7, 8, 9 years ago when I was first getting into investing about efficient versus inefficient markets. And land is incredibly inefficient. People don't know how to price it. It's not well understood. It's not like apartments. I would think of apartments being like the equities of real estate.
Dan, let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is unveiling land loopholes for savvy investors. So, Dan, what's the number one secret to doing just that?
Probably the biggest thing that most people don't realize with the buying and selling of the land, I'm not paying capital gains taxes. I think you and I talked about this last week where talk to your accountant for the exact amount, but once you're doing enough transactions, you become a dealer and it's just taxed as ordinary income. It's not capital gains with all the buying and selling. And so that's one thing that most people don't realize.
Okay, excellent. And if you're looking to make that makes sense. And we'll touch on that later here on a few ways to solve for that. We have a solution for that if it's a large enough transaction, except if you're not a dealer. Okay, so a couple of technical things there. But back up a little bit more, I guess. So you move from house hacking to sounds like buying and doing deals with a partner to basically maybe exclusively, or tell us now, like, I mean, just buying land and doing land deals. Give us the biggest secret to that versus, the traditional multifamily syndication route or the traditional, fix and flip, and just, churning those deals. What is it about land loopholes that makes it so attractive for what you're doing?
Let me make a few distinctions. Land, going back to the early stage of that story after I'd bought a couple rentals, is the way to generate, it's the cash printing machine for me. Because then in the separate bucket are my investments. So I'm continually buying buildings. I close on a fourplex next week, right? So front range land is my means for scaling my income dramatically to then go buy more and more nice long-term assets. And then those assets also help reduce my tax burden. I just did a bunch of cost sakes. So probably the biggest thing about land is it's just underappreciated. It's very inefficient. I remember reading about that concept, 7, 8, 9 years ago when I was first getting into investing about efficient versus inefficient markets. And land is incredibly inefficient. People don't know how to price it. It's not well understood. It's not like apartments. I would think of apartments being like the equities of real estate, where trying to go buy a stock tomorrow at a discount is very hard, right? People do it, but it's not simple. Apartments are that way. It takes a lot of effort or a big value add. Whereas land, going to buy it at a discount is very, relatively speaking, easy. There are mispricings everywhere. There are opportunities everywhere. It's kind of more the blue ocean of real estate because it's just not well understood.
Wow, I think that's a great insight there, right? So it seems like it's almost like you got an insider's edge
Mhm.
when it comes to real estate investing if you choose land because of what you just said. And it's not easily understood how to price it. It's
Mhm.
often misunderstood, and it's inefficient for transactions versus, let's say, multifamily, which has financing readily available,
Yes,
and it's
yes.
very easy to understand. And so what's the next, kind of secret to unveiling land loopholes if you're a savvy investor and you want to make some money with land?
Picking a niche, because land is a massive umbrella, right? It's really, really broad. And so for me, going back to how I learned about it initially, we were building new construction on simple infill lots. And so, guys, for anyone that doesn't know what that means, think about you're walking down the street in an established neighborhood. There's two houses, but there's still a vacant lot between the two houses. That's what I mean by infill. Water, sewer, power are all right there, or you can put in well and septic easily, right? Entitlements are done. There's nothing you have to do other than get your plans, engineering, and go get the permit. You don't have to go and do a long process to get to the point where you're even allowed to put, a house or an apartment there. It's already zoned, entitlements are in place. So that's been my niche primarily. And I watch friends of mine building here in Colorado Springs where they might take 2 years before they get a permit because there's so much that has to be done. Whereas the builds I've done down there, I 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe, a couple $1,000s to get the engineering and plans done, and I've got a permit for a new construction. So that's been my niche. Granted, if you take the time to figure out how to take raw land, totally different, and get it to that stage where it's ready to be built on, that could be a whole nother niche where you can make a lot of money. So trying not to ramble here, pick a specific niche within land, because beyond what I just described, there's all kinds of land for recreation. Or I was just in San Diego, there's a massive life science community there, and they need land for new buildings, right? That's a huge industry, the life sciences space. I was talking to a guy, and they're looking for land in Riverside for new buildings. You could, connect the people that need that land with the land and make a big spread in the middle. So there's a million niches. Pick one, get really good at it, and don't try and do everything.